The theme today is place matters, so kind of keep that in the forefront of your mind. We were winding through the city on a narrow road. The tour bus was just about the width of the road, and lining the road were piles and piles of garbage, some broken down vehicles with no wheels and rusted rims, wire re-rod twisted and embedded within the mounds of broken stone, perhaps once part of someone's home. There was an occasional person or two standing alongside the road, a short distance from the heap of trash, staring out into the distance with sullen eyes and a face that was weathered and wrinkled. Perhaps from this geographical description, you may think we were deep in the hills of Appalachia, where people living on the margins of society rarely participate in the benefits of trash pickup. But no, this place is a city called Jerusalem. The first time I was in the Holy Land, I stood on top of the Mount of Olives, and I looked down all over Jerusalem. Jerusalem, the city where prophets were killed and people were stoned to death. A place where empire and powerful religious leaders hung out and kept rigid religious laws and kept a keen eye out for people not keeping the laws. A place where the powers that be cast doubt upon everyone who had a reputation for performing acts of kindness, healing people, or casting out demons. My first journey through Jerusalem and up to the Mount of Olives had such an impact on me. It was a place that I had read about in the picture Bibles as a child. The place where the cobblestone streets showed merchants selling their goods, and where Jesus rode into the city with palm branches lining the streets and people saying, "Hosanna!" and where Jesus carried a cross. But today, in our gospel lesson from Luke, this place, Jerusalem, has an impact on me once again because it's where Jesus is headed today. You see, Jesus is getting close to the cross, close to the place where he will be killed, close to the place that will condemn him for doing good. So my question today is, why would anyone feel threatened by someone who is healing the sick, freeing those from suffering from mental illness, or speaking of unconditional love? Why would love cause such a stir among religious officials, leaders of the empire, and some people in the crowd? But love and kindness, the kind that Jesus was teaching, was frightening to some people, especially those who thought they would lose their grip on power or fearful of losing their job. Herod Antipas, the governor of 4 areas around Galilee, was one of those fearful of losing his grip over this itinerant preacher and teacher. And the Pharisees, those in the high religious stance, are leery of his mission too. And they come to do Herod's bidding, to warn Jesus that this might not turn out so well if he keeps doing what he's doing, loving those most in need of love. But love speaks and acts in typical Jesus fashion here. And Jesus tells the Pharisees, go back to Herod and tell that fox that that my work is not done. Not yet. Jesus said he's not done healing the sick and tending to people's deepest needs. But when I'm done, Jesus said, I'll leave, but on my own sweet time. So, this brings me to another question. Who's in charge here? Powerful or love? And you got to love it when Jesus calls Herod a fox. He may be implying that Herod is a little deceptive or clever person, or maybe even both. But when Jesus called Herod that fox, he is not saying that Herod is as sly as a fox as a compliment. In actuality, Jesus is insulting him. For a fox, you see, was an unclean animal in the Israelite holiness codes. Jesus thought Herod fit to be insulted in such a way because although Herod was often tried to appear the pious Jewish leader, he had more than a few problems maintaining the loyalty of his Jewish subjects. Love here, you see, takes a stand and it unveils the truth. Why were the chief priests and the Roman authorities and the mobs of people so determined on destroying the one who is the embodiment of love? Why? Why is love such a threat? How often have I desired to gather your children as a hen gathers her brood and brings it under her wings, and you were not willing to be nurtured or loved, Jesus said. I love this visual of God's love for his children. I love this image of God, especially when I need to be loved, when I need to be sheltered from danger, from oppressive rigidness, bent on keeping people in poverty and free from freedom, or loved and held in spite of my own messiness, my own mishaps, and my misguided words and deeds at times. But who doesn't want to be loved? Who doesn't want to be taken under the wing of the one who loves us no matter what, unconditionally, with all our insecurities, with all of our quirks, and with all of our pride? But sometimes I think, and perhaps maybe you have pondered this too, but sometimes love has a funny way of offending people or making them feel uncomfortable. And trust me, it's painful. It's painful when someone you love doesn't feel worthy of that love. It's that place of heartache for both the lover, the one extending the love, and the one being loved. But love isn't always about the good stuff, the stuff that reinforces a person's self-reliance or dismisses bad behavior. Love, you see, is about telling the truth, and the truth can be harsh to hear sometimes. Jesus didn't always tell people what they wanted to hear. He didn't always sugarcoat what it means to take up your cross and follow him. Now, he told them about a new way to live, a new way to love, a new world order where rampant control over others less fortunate does not reign. Love is hard sometimes. Trust me. Helping others who are not in a good place is hard. Perhaps from no fault of their own, or maybe it's self-inflicted. It's still hard. standing in the gap for those being harassed and persecuted because of where they live, what they look like, what language they speak, or it's hard sometimes to love. But the Apostle Paul today, in his address to the Christian community in Galatia, tells those who are dismissing the Gentiles as outsiders and creating havoc by using the rigid food laws and circumcision as their basis for who's in and who's out. And in the words of Bill Utrick, knock it off. Our citizenship, you see, our belonging is not from the earthly realm. We are citizens of something much greater than anything we create or anyone we elevate to laud the law over us. We are citizens who stand firm in the love of Christ. So act like it, Paul says. Not only in words, but in deeds. Somehow, I get the feeling that the place of our citizenship, the place that matters the most, isn't really a place at all, but love. Love is in charge because we are imitators of Christ, and that is our birthright. Today, tomorrow, and the next day, indicating time in general, and the next day meaning perhaps in a short time, Jesus would leave the region of Galilee, and he will begin that journey to Jerusalem. He will be cleaning the streets where heaps of hatred were spewed toward the most vulnerable. And even with the road to the cross in his future, Jesus wasn't done speaking of a world with peace, not violence, that would rule the masses. And I surmise he's still not done teaching and showing us too. Jesus' mission keeps speaking of a world where the have-nots will have. The left out are in. The imprisoned are set free. The oppressed sprung out from under their oppressors. The sick will be healthy. The mentally ill find wholeness. The starving children will eat their fill and laugh again. In the ashes of war, they will rebuild and become homes to families again. The mighty and powerful will be weak. Muskegon, America, Israel, Gaza, Palestine, Ukraine, Russia, Sudan, places where forgiveness, mercy, and grace line the streets, and the tired, worn out, and withered faces from a lifetime of hardship will find a place of love and acceptance. Because place matters, but people matter more. At least they did to Jesus. Oh, Jesus. Gather us together again. Gather your children together under your wing of safety and security. And inshallah, God willing, we will travel the winding roads through Jerusalem again. And I will remember the words of Jesus as he looked out over that city and said, Jerusalem, my Jerusalem. Can't you just feel the pain and ache in Jesus' heart? But honestly, I'm tired of lamenting over Jerusalem. I'm tired of lamenting over racism and gender equality. I'm tired of lamenting over children starving and children used for gain. I'm tired of lamenting families living in fear, detention centers, broken relationships, marriages, and the messiness in the world. But we are in this place now, and it matters. So, who's in charge? Who's in charge? Look toward heaven, Abraham, and count the stars, if you are able to count them. Something I have in my office since the last time that we have had this lesson is, look toward heaven, Paula, and count the stars, if you are able to count them. Who's in charge? We are on our way to the place called Jerusalem, and we are on our way to love. Amen.